Andrew McCart, IFLTV. You already know I'm always delighted to be joined by my good friend stateside, Mr. Dan RAFAEL. Dan, what is happening to the boxing game? It's like
That's a pretty open-ended question.
it is a very open-ended question because before I pushed record there, we were discussing about what's going on in the boxing world, and you know what? It just seems crazy what we're about to discuss here. But I suppose I'll start with Usyk versus Rico Verhoeven, which is I think he's a 7 time world kickboxing champion. Big man. He can clearly punch. Yeah, fighting Usyk for the WBC sanctioned WBC heavyweight world title in Egypt of all places at Giza at the pyramids. Quite a spectacle. I'd imagine it will be. But your thoughts on the fight itself?
Well, it'll certainly be a spectacle. I mean, I don't care what fight it is. You put a fight at the base of the pyramids in Egypt, and that's quite the backdrop, quite the spectacle, of course. As far as the fight itself, like I've said many times, at the stage of the career that Usyk is in, having run through in recent years a bunch of fights that he was either mandated to fight or obligated to do in a rematch, that he's now free of that. He gave up the WBO title because he wasn't going to, not because he was afraid, in my opinion, to fight a Fabio Wardley. He just didn't want to be dictated to as far as, a time frame when he had to fight and who he had to fight. So I can understand that. And so that became vacant. And so he was in a position where he could pick who he wanted to fight. And I didn't have a problem if he wants to pick Rico Verhoeven, the kickboxer, to do the fight with. I mean, whatever. I mean, if somebody's willing to put up a lot of money, and clearly the folks involved with Turkey Al Sheikh and Sella are willing to pay a lot of money for the fight. My only quarrel with it is I'm a little bit disappointed that it's being sanctioned for the WBC title. And I understand where the WBC is coming from. They're giving respect to Usyk because he is not in a mandatory scenario. They've already stated that after this, he requested an optional defense at the convention in December, and they gave it to him. That was before they knew who the opponent was. At the time, Alexander Usyk was speaking about his desire to fight Deontay Wilder, which would have been okay. I mean, again, not the greatest matchup, but at least Deontay's a top-level heavyweight professional, been a world champion of the WBC for many years. So I kind of understood that he was the one big name of the big three, other than Usyk being the fourth, but of the other three of that time frame that he hadn't fought, which was Wilder, and of course he defeated Joshua twice, and Tyson Fury twice. And then to go from there to Verhoeven, I was a little disappointed it's being sanctioned for the title, but I get it. It's part of it's showbiz. It's obviously a lot of it's biz, and they're going to do a lot of biz, I guess, on this fight. I guess he comes from the kickboxing world with a good fan base, and they'll do it. And listen, you can't not watch it. It will be a spectacle, that's for sure. Hopefully they'll put on a good undercard, and if the indications are an undercard of the types of for the big cards that Turkey's done, you have to figure there'll be some attractive fights part of that show. But right now it seems like Usyk, understandably at 39 years old, he's not necessarily looking. The legacy is set basically. That he's just doing the biggest events and things that interest him and what pays the most money, which I can't blame him for, I suppose.
I, I suppose Rico is going to have a very good understanding of boxing because he's going to be working with Peter Fury. Now, I don't know how much you know of Peter Fury. I know you knew he's Tyson Fury's uncle, trained Tyson for the Klitschko fight.
Mm-hmm.
Peter is a very his boxing knowledge is outstanding, especially here in the UK that we understand when we listen to Peter. He's a no nonsense guy, so he does have that Peter in his corner. But even with a guy with that sort of caliber of boxing expertise, do you think that he could take a guy from a different discipline? We've seen it many a times before when a different discipline stepped into boxing, it's not gone good. Same with boxing stepping into another discipline, it's not gone good. But do you think with Peter Fury's help that maybe he can get Rico to a point where it can be a competitive fight?
I mean, I don't think the trainer. I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about Peter's ability to be a trainer, but
Mm,
you're only as good as your student, I suppose.
mm.
And it's hard for me to see as good of a kickboxer as he has been. It's hard to see anybody who's never really. He's had one professional boxing match. Yes, he is known. And I when they said he was going to be the opponent, I did some reading on him just to see what it's all about. He has trained alongside Tyson Fury. If you read his bio, he has credited Tyson Fury with helping him in those times they worked together, for helping him really hone in on his jab and get his jab to be very effective. Within the kickboxing realm, obviously you have to be able to kick and punch, but he is known, I guess, within kickboxing as a striker, as a puncher. So that will translate, I assume, better to the boxing ring than if he was known mostly as a kicker. But in any event, you're fighting Alexander Usyk. I mean, you're talking about not only the heavyweight champion of the world, but to many people, the number one fighter in the world pound for pound, a guy that's just, run through all the elite heavyweights in recent times, or many of them, whether it's 2 wins against Fury and, as I said, the 2 wins against Joshua, the 2 knockouts against Dubois. I mean, to expect a guy who is not experienced as a boxer against actual boxers to come into that realm and win the heavyweight title or even compete with the heavyweight champion, it's hard to see. Now, we did see Francis Ngannou come from the MMA world and be highly competitive against Tyson Fury, knock him down and go 10 rounds in a fight that a lot of people left the arena or from watching their screen thinking that Francis Ngannou deserved to be the winner. But we've also seen Francis Ngannou go in with a top heavyweight like Anthony Joshua and get absolutely smoked and destroyed quickly. So, competitive, I don't know. I kind of tend to doubt it. It's hard to see that. He can't kick Alexander Usyk, so that's a problem, I guess. It's going to be a spectacle, but when the bell rings and the spectacle part is over and it's now down to the actual athletic competition, skills pay the bills. That's the general consensus. And Alexander Usyk is one of the single most skilled heavyweight boxers who's ever probably put on gloves. And this guy's had one professional fight, a decade ago. So if you put a gun to my head, it probably won't be competitive.
The WBC's on the line. Now, I'd imagine that
and the Ring Magazine title, the lineal title.
The magazine, but I'd imagine the IBF and the WBA might force them to vacate the titles.
So that's interesting. So I have when okay, first of all, when the fight was announced that it was happening, it was announced as a WBC title fight. As it turned out, at the moment of the announcement, the WBC, I checked with the WBC, and they had yet to be contacted about sanctioning the fight. So in the end, they agreed to sanction it. So it will be for the WBC title. But when it was announced, it was not apparently approved at that time. So when that happened, I inquired with the WBC, and I was told, no, we haven't even received the sanction request yet. That came, I guess, within the next day. But I also inquired with the IBF and with the WBA. And since those inquiries, both of the organizations have said to me that they have not received any correspondence or anybody from the promotion or from Team Usyk or anybody to reach out to them to ask them about providing a sanction for the fighter, or to ask if they would be willing to do so or anything like that. So at the moment, apparently it is not for the IBF title or for the WBA title. That's not to say that it couldn't change in the future. They would have to, I'm not sure how that works. I mean, boxing organizations sometimes make up the rules as they go along. We all know that. But the reality is Rico Verhoeven is not rated by any boxing organization. He has no boxing experience. And I've heard some people, Andrew, say to me, well, how is this different from when like Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor, who came into boxing from UFC with no professional boxing fights? He was 0-0, taking on the 49-0 pound for pound, legend coming out of a retirement to fight him. Well, there's a huge difference, because when Floyd fought Conor McGregor, Floyd was coming out of a retirement for 2 years, did not hold a world title, and nobody was asking it to be for a world title. It's a big difference. So he was able to just do a crossover fight as a spectacle, turned out to be the second highest grossing combat event in the history of the world, but it wasn't for a world championship. This is a different ballgame. You're talking about the heavyweight champ of the world. It's a lot different stakes, a lot different stature.
So that being said, it'll be good for the heavyweight division if it does become vacant, because then we do get different champions. And
I'm not saying that. I mean, I never like to see a champion, especially somebody like Usyk, that has earned it the hard way. He didn't back into these titles. He went out there and he did the job against top-level opponents. If he decides he's going to give them up, certainly that is his prerogative. Clearly, he's keeping the WBC title. He still has the lineal title. He still has the Ring Magazine belt. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what the IBF and the WBA do. I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of those belts ends up becoming vacant.
The thing is, I think Usyk's the type of fighter. Well, he's fought mandatory after mandatory after mandatory. He gave us, you mentioned, the Joshua fights, the Fury fights. He's done it all. He's undisputed down at cruiserweight, undisputed up at heavyweight. I'd imagine he's probably at the stage of his career now. He's looking at, right, I've done it all. Let me fight Rico in Egypt. A little bit of fun. let me vacate the belts and let the other heavyweights, these young heavyweights coming through, give them an opportunity to become a world champion. That's the type of guy I think that Usyk is. So I'd imagine that maybe he might vacate these titles, and we'll see.
If he does vacate it, though, Andrew, I don't think he's doing it out of anything altruistic. He's not doing it because he wants to. I'm not saying he's opposed to helping a younger
Yeah,
fighter, but I don't think champions think to themselves, "I'm going to vacate my title so some other guy, can come along and claim he's the champ." I don't. I just don't think he's got that mentality.
yeah.
I think the mentality is, I'm doing what's best for my career. This is the fight that was brought to me by my team. It makes financial sense. I'm intrigued by fighting in Egypt, perhaps at the pyramids. You know, I appreciate Turkey spending a lot of money to put my event on and those types of things. I'm not sure the belts necessarily are part of that, what goes on in his mind. But here's all I know, Andrew. Whoever wins that fight, if Rico wins, whatever belts are, it's like he's the heavyweight champ because he'll be the man that beat the man that beat the man. That's what you got to figure out. Like if Francis Ngannou had gotten the win against Tyson Fury, even though at that time that was a 10-round non-title fight, it wasn't, none of the sanctioning body titles were at stake. When you're the lineal champion fighting at the weight and you lose, the guy who wins is the champ. It doesn't, the belts are not relevant to the lineage. So had Ngannou walked out of the ring as the winner, he'd have been the heavyweight champion of the world, perhaps without belts, but he certainly would be the lineal champion. It'll be the same way, whatever belts are at stake in this fight, that whoever wins between Usyk and your boy Rico is going to be the heavyweight champ of the world.
It's a mad thought to think that Joshua couldn't do it, Fury couldn't do it, Dubois couldn't do it, but if Rico done it, a non-boxer did it,
That's why I
that'd be
don't think he's going to
insane.
do it,
Yeah, but listen, again, who knows, Dan? This boxing game keeps on throwing up crazy stuff every week. And I'm glad you mentioned Mayweather McGregor because that brings me on to my next discussion that I want to talk about. You mentioned that was the second biggest grossing combat event, the Mayweather McGregor, and Tyson Fury, sorry, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul done very well as well. Now, if you got Tyson Fury, I keep saying Tyson Fury, if you got Mike Tyson and Mayweather, put them together, which has been talked about. I know it's kind of there's some chaos has erupted somewhere and it might not be going ahead, but
It's
um,
it's not been talked about, Andrew. It's the signed contracts from both sides.
has it definitely been signed? I,
100%.
I, I read somewhere that it
No,
was.
the fight was signed in September. Well, when they announced that it was signed by the
Mhm.
company that has them both under contract, but they did not announce a specific date or location. Then there was a lot of reporting in the last couple of weeks or months, I guess, that the fight would take place on April 25th in Congo, in Africa.
Yeah, the Muhammad Ali and Foreman.
Exactly, the Rumble in the Jungle. But what I reported in my newsletter and also posted on social media on just the other day is that, and I talked to people who are involved in the event. Yeah, the fight's still is still happening supposedly, but
Hmm.
it is not going to happen on April 25th. And if you don't even have to know that an insider or somebody that's involved with the promotion. If you just look at the calendar and you're trying to mount this type of event with those types of names, and on top of that, to do it in a place where logistically it's a lot more complicated to do an event in Congo, let's say, than if you're in a casino in Las Vegas, that there's just not enough time to get that done. So that fight, even if it does end up happening, it will not be on April 25th. And while Congo has certainly been mentioned as a very possible location for that fight, I am told it is open-ended, and there are other places that are interested that they may end up doing the fight. They're also weighing apparently different possibilities in terms of a partner, in terms of a streaming service, because they're not going to do this as a pay-per-view, but apparently they have interest from, I don't have to, the big players. There's the, Amazons and Netflix and ESPN Plus and, other players like that. So they're looking for something like that to wrap up a deal for a broadcast, for a stream or a broadcast. So yeah, apparently it's still happening, but it's just not going to be on the April date where everybody was reporting it.
It's just mad to think though, because I can remember a while back when Mike Tyson was talking about Mayweather and talking about Ali, and Mayweather had said something that he was better than Ali, but then Mike Tyson refuted that by saying he can't take his kids to school, but Ali was the people's champion. To think back then that you never thought then when that was going on 10 years ago that this fight would happen. And I keep saying to you, Dan, that this boxing game, it just seems like we're not talking about we are talking about good fights. We had Canelo Crawford, right? But it does feels like we're getting more and more of these sort of exhibition sideshow fights, and it's just insane that we're getting Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather.
Well, the thing that's so crazy, forget about the fact that Tyson is fighting Mayweather in an exhibition fight. How about the fact that Floyd, who turned 49 years old just a couple of days ago, and obviously Mike is near 60 years old at this point, Floyd is about to have, if again, a big, big, big if it goes to plan, because, in boxing, lots of things don't go to plan. But he is on the books for 3 fights this year. He hasn't had 3 fights since 2005 when he was coming up to junior, when he was at junior welterweight and then moving up to welterweight. You go back to 2005, in that year, he knocked out 3 opponents. He knocked out Henry Brucelis. Mm-hmm. Then he knocked out Arturo Gatti and won the title at 140 for the WBC. And then in his next fight, he went up to welterweight and he knocked out Charmbe Mitchell, who was a former junior welterweight champion. So it's been a long time since he's had 3 fights. Now you fast forward to a man who has been in retirement from official fights since the Conor McGregor fight, which was in 2017, so 9 years ago. And he's on the books for 3 fights. Supposedly, this exhibition bout in the April.
You're not saying he's knocking out Mike Tyson, are you, Dan?
What's that?
You're not saying he's going to knock out Mike Tyson, are you?
No, I doubt that. He's on the books for that exhibition whenever that may take place. That's coming first. And then Floyd just announced this week, I think it was on Monday, that he's going to Athens, Greece, to fight a retired kickboxer. I forget the guy's name, Iron Mike, something or other, Z. Forget the guy's name. But that would be the next fight on the docket. And then the Pacquiao rematch, which would be the official fight. The guy, is being as active as he's ever been. And the reason for that is obvious. I mean, nobody comes back to boxing at 49 because they just, happen to still love the game. He needs the money. I mean, let's just be honest about it. That's just the reality. He is, a guy that has earned, gross-wise anyway, more money than anybody in the history of boxing. Estimated that Floyd Mayweather has earned, just in the ring, forget about anything he might have made doing other things besides boxing, $1.2 billion. Obviously, he doesn't keep all that. There's taxes and there's other, all kinds of other things that go out of that. But you should be able to live a long and comfortable life on that kind of income. And he's in a cash crunch. There's no doubt. Oh, the guy he's fighting from Greece is he goes by the nickname Iron Mike, but his name is Mike Zambidis from Athens, and he's been retired from kickboxing since like 2015. He came out of that retirement and had 1 boxing match in Germany, in like 2019 and won. But so he's doing that exhibition apparently, and then September in the official fight, the rematch with Pacquiao that has been announced by their teams and by Netflix, which will carry that fight because they like to do those, big fights that are more name recognition than serious combat. With the exception being, of course, when they did Canelo against Crawford, which was 2 prime, names and active fighters.
Doing Fury McMurdo as well, which is a big statement as well, because like you said last time I spoke to you, it's not a big fight. It's a big fight, but it's just not a mega fight. But staying on Floyd Mayweather Pacquiao, it was Pacquiao that said, if I remember reading somewhere, it was Pacquiao that said, no, I want this as a real fight. I don't want this to be an exhibition. And I suppose that's good, because it means that we're not going to get an exhibition fight where they might not try and go for the knockout. It's going to be 12-ounce gloves and whatnot, 3 2-minute rounds or whatever it may be. We're going to get a properly sanctioned fight where Mayweather is putting that 50-0 record.
100%. That's the only thing that makes it even quasi interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If look, we don't have to relitigate their first fight from 2015. It was a terrible fight, and Floyd won easily. But he's 49 years old. Pacquiao has actually had a real fight since then, even though he didn't win against Mario Barrios back in July of last year. A lot of people thought he did win. Mm-hmm. He looked pretty good for a guy that was coming out of a 4-year retirement that's in his mid-40s. And that's a lot more than Floyd has done. Because even though Floyd has had, forget about even the exhibitions that he has coming up or that are scheduled, since his retirement post-McGregor, he's had 8 exhibition fights. They haven't been big deals. They've actually, if you ever take your time to watch them, A, you'll never get that time back, and B, they've all stunk out loud. He just hasn't made entertainment. If he's forced to fight against Pacquiao, if he's aggressive at all, and he knows that beautiful O is on the line, and there's no boxer in the history who ever put on gloves that treasured his undefeated record more than Floyd Mayweather, that the fact that could go away is not insignificant. So if there's any reason to be interested in that rematch, that may be it. As you said, it will be an official fight. So there is that. But I'm if they decide not to do that, I won't be unhappy about it. Let Floyd be 50-0, fine. but he needs the money, and obviously he's going to make money in these different events, or he wouldn't be doing them, in my opinion.
The thing with Mayweather is that zero, he marketed that zero so well coming through because it was always the I'm 49-0, 48, 47-0, and that zero was marketed so well that made him his millions because people, especially us this side of the pond, when we stayed up till 6 a.m. to watch Floyd Mayweather, it wasn't to see if he won, or we weren't more Floyd Mayweather fans, so to speak. Some of us might have been, but we all tuned in to see if that guy he was fighting could take away that zero.
Listen, that obsession of his to keep his zero has kind of fucked up the rest of boxing, because so many people that have come after him, a lot of the young fighters,
I've said
they
that
look
as
to
well.
Mayweather and all they want to do is preserve the O. Now, say whatever you want about Floyd's 50-0, and a lot of them were against big names at the wrong time. But he also has a lot of quality victories. He's not a guy that only got 50 wins fighting nobodies. I mean, Floyd earned what he got. You know, I'm not taking anything away from that. He fought a lot of top quality names when he should have fought them, especially when he was still fighting at 30 and 35 and even some of the fights at 147. But he did fight a lot of guys at the wrong time, let's say. But the fact is, he treasured the 50-0. A lot of young fighters look up to Floyd, and they have made that a thing in boxing now where, God forbid, you lose your O. And it, in my opinion, has done irreparable damage to the sport.
Dan, I agree.
And I don't, by the way, and I don't think
no,
that
I
Floyd,
agree.
I don't think Floyd had it. That was not, I'm not saying Floyd's,
It wasn't his
not Floyd's
intention.
fault because it was his intention. It's just the byproduct of the way that he treated his career.
But I think people saw that and then the money behind it, and they looked at Floyd and be like, "Look at the amount of money he made because he was undefeated. Maybe I can do that if I stay undefeated."
I need to get my stack at 20 so I can make it rain right now.
Well, that's it. Well, I don't think I'll ever got a stack of 20s, Dan, unfortunately. Maybe one
But
day.
Floyd was doing like a stack of 100s, though. I only have 20s.
Yeah. We're $1 bills, me and you. We're the $1 bills. Yeah, it's an intriguing fight. I do, again, if that zero's on the line for Floyd Mayweather, is it a proper fight? I do think that Pacquiao, the way he fights, that maybe was he not injured the first fight? Did not say he had a shoulder injury the first
He
fight?
said he had a shoulder injury. He ended up having to undergo a surgery after the
Mm-hmm.
fight. He didn't want to cancel the fight. It had taken so many years to make it that he understood, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of in a no-win situation. If I pull out now, the fight probably won't ever happen. And by the way, speaking of exhibitions, he's got an exhibition supposedly coming up in April against Ruslan Provodnikov. So all these guys are fighting before they're supposed to fight each other. It's nuts, as you said.
But again, the fights we're talking about there have all been like sort of crossover exhibition.
We're not talking about the real fights that are coming up.
Exactly. So let's talk about some real fights that are coming up. Now, I spoke to Regis Prograis earlier today about the Conor Benn fight, and he basically said to me that Conor isn't good. He is not good, and he wholeheartedly thinks that he's going to go to London on April 11th and do damage on Conor. He's very, very confident. And I said to Regis, I said, Regis, people are going to look at your last three fights. They're going to look at the Devin Haney, the Jack Catterall losses, and then the war you had with Jojo Diaz last August. People are going to say you're past your best. And he says, well, listen, this is the fight I need to bring me back. What do you make of the fight? Do you think a 37-year-old Regis Prograis going up to 150, his whole career was done at 140, majority of it, 90% of it. Do you think he can go in there and do what he says that he can do against Conor Benn?
No.
No.
I mean, listen, I have nothing but love for Regis Prograis. Always been a great guy to deal with. Always been an honest fighter. He gave his best efforts. Was in some tremendous fights. Had 2 reigns as a junior welterweight world champion. So it doesn't bring me pleasure to say this, but he was picked for a reason. He's all done for the most part, particularly going up in weight. And say whatever you want about whether you think Conor Benn is no good or you think he's really good or whatever your perspective is on him. He's a lot fresher. He's a lot younger. It's in his backyard. I mean, there's every element of this is constructed for Conor Benn. I wish Regis Prograis the best, but I just don't see him getting the win. The weight and the wear and tear that he's taken. If you struggle life and fucking death with Jojo Diaz at this stage of Jojo Diaz's career, that should tell you a lot. Now, Regis got the win, and it was a really entertaining, exciting fight. But when you take a step back and you look at what it came against, that must give you pause. He lost a lot, clear to Catterall, as you mentioned. He didn't win a second of the fight against Devin Haney, who knocked him down. Now he's moving up 10 more pounds. And again, Regis is a willing guy. He'll fight whoever. And certainly, from a skill-wise and things like that, Devin Haney is obviously a more skillful fighter than a Conor Benn. But I would dare say that Conor Benn has much better punching power than Devin Haney does. So, it's a humongous uphill battle. They got him because he came for the right price. He is a guy that is known. He'll help promote the fight. He did interviews. He's doing interviews with everybody, and it's a great opportunity for him. If he does happen to win, it will bring him back to some degree. But I'll believe it when I see it. How about that?
Co-main event on Tyson Fury Makhmudov on Netflix. I just want to talk about Netflix for a second. Like, how big a player are they in this game? You spoke about they do like the big fights, but the fact they are putting on this big. It's not a mega fight like we spoke about, and the big names like a Mayweather, Mike Tyson. It's Tyson Fury versus Makhmudov. And the fact that they made a play for that
Mm-hmm.
interests me because it tells me that they might be sticking around and making plays for these heavyweight fights and the big fights, not the
Yeah,
mega fights,
I
but big
mean,
fights.
I think that's true. I mean, what they're doing is they're cherry picking the event type fights. Now I know Tyson Fury and the Conor Benn, that card is not on the same level, let's say, as a Canelo and a Crawford, or even like a mass interest of a Mike Tyson against a Jake Paul and events of that caliber. But they're going to build up certainly their subscriber base in the UK, which is an important market, I think, for them. And I don't know this for 100%, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that when Jake Paul fought Anthony Joshua in December, that fight was on Netflix, did a good number. They're doing the fight between Tyson Fury coming out of retirement on Netflix. You know that at some point we are going to see eventually Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. It will not surprise me one iota if that fight is on Netflix, because I just don't believe that the executives at Netflix, who understand their audience, they're just not buying this to do a one-off Tyson Fury fight. They're involved with Tyson Fury on his reality show. They're doing a full feature, actual documentary about his life. They're doing this fight. You think they're doing all that, and they're just not going to try to do the Anthony Joshua fight also, which is, as big of a fight as there is in boxing today? I think 100% that's going to wind up on Netflix. And so this is sort of the entree into that process, let's say. And they're going to, and by the way, Zuffa Boxing, which is owned by TKO, their COO, Mark Shapiro, who goes regularly on the earnings calls with the financial media because it's a publicly traded company. He was doing an earnings call in recent days talking about the amount of money that Conor Benn was being paid, and he made the point: listen, that's not coming from our company's bottom line, so it has no impact on our earnings. That's being funded by Sella and by Turki Al-Sheikh. And he was asked about the fact that they're doing this event with Netflix, and what they said when they started their Zuffa Boxing project, that they're going to do a handful of what they call super cards per year, 2 to 4, he said, and they'll be on Netflix, whereas their regular shows for the time being, obviously over the course of the contract, are going to be on Paramount Plus here in the United States. Now, they are able to sell those rights internationally. So they have really 2 outlets. They have what's Paramount Plus in America, plus the bigger shows they're going to do with Netflix. So Netflix is going to be around doing these types of events for a while.
What what I will say though, I think Anthony Joshua signed a lifelong deal with the Zone, did he not?
That's fine, but he also fought his last fight
Netflix,
on
yeah.
Netflix. There's a lot of way, the Zone was all too happy to take a payment to allow him free. And if they're going to try to make Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to take another big payment.
Well, that is very, very true. Another fight, Conor Benn's old opponent, old opponent, it was only a couple of months back, Chris Eubank Jr. And you spoke about it as well in your newsletter, I believe, Dan. It was Berlanga. Now, I like that fight, if I'm going to be honest with you. I do
It's a fun
think
fight.
it's a fun fight. I think Chris Eubank up at 168 will suit him a little bit better. As we know, we've seen him with the weight cuts leading up to the 2 Conor Benn fights. Berlanga's coming off that stoppage loss to Hamza Shiraz. I think it's a fun fight. It might not be a mega fight, but I think it'll be a good fight in New York somewhere, I believe.
Well, I think, first of all, a couple of things about that. Number one, I am skeptical that it will actually happen. So if you go to what actually has been going on, you had the folks from Sella who have made inquiries to both sides. The first question always is, would you be interested in the fight? And then if they say yes, then you take it from there. So my understanding is that both sides said, yeah, well, I'm interested. And then you start to get into a little more of the detail about what the timing is, obviously the money, obviously, what's the weight, the kind of questions that need to be answered. So my understanding is that both sides were like, yeah, I'm interested in that fight. From Berlanga's perspective, I can't go lower than 168. I'm not going to deplete myself. I'm a 68 pounder. He's been a 68 pounder pretty much his entire career. So I can't go lower than 168. Eubank and I don't know if it was Chris himself or it was Sella, whoever, but the weight that was suggested when they had the conversation with the other side was 164, which was like a non-starter for the Berlanga team because they're like, listen, I can't go lower than 168. I'm not sure why Eubank would say 64. He's had numerous fights at 168. Clearly, he struggled to make 160 for the two fights against Conor Benn that took place in 2025. Seems like a reasonable thing to do, just a regular 168 type fight. And the other thing that I was told is that even if they could do the match, that the Eubank team was saying, well, we're interested if we can get the weight worked out, but I can't be ready till July. My understanding was Sella didn't necessarily have a specific card or date they wanted it to be on, but they were contemplating as soon as perhaps being on the May undercard of Rico against Usyk. Now, obviously, that probably won't happen. So there's still, the point I'm making is there's a lot of things that would have to get ironed out. I do like the idea of the matchup. Two guys that are a little desperate, two guys coming off of a loss, but high-profile names who've been in some good fights. Obviously, you know, Chris was in the 2025 Fight of the Year. Berlanga's had some exciting fights and some big knockouts. He obviously fought for the title against Canelo. Chris has also fought for a world title. He's been an interim title holder. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that fight. They'll talk a lot of shit with each other. So I don't think it was contemplated for like a UK fight. Not to say they couldn't put it there, but if they were talking about maybe doing it like in Egypt on that card, and obviously they do other events in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I could certainly see that if they did decide to do a card in the UK. But again, it's fun to talk about. I would like to see it actually, but I don't think it in the end probably doesn't happen if they can't come to an agreement on the weight. That's a problem.
It does seem strange that the 168 he's wanting to bring Berlanga down. I mean, he went through it with Conor, so it's like,
I don't know.
again, like I say to you, Dan, this boxing game. I'm looking forward to next week. What other? I'm going to go on my Instagram. I know I'm going to go on my Instagram and some random nonsense or crazy news from the boxing world is going to just stun me again because, like I say, it's just a crazy, crazy world, this boxing game. But I love it. I love it. I love getting your views on it, Dan. But they don't have to go check my interview to get your views. They can find you where? You got your Big Fight Weekend YouTube channel, your Substack. But like I say, everything's on
Got
the
our
link below
podcast.
this. Your podcast. Just tell me everybody where they can find you, Dan.
Well, they go on my danrafael.substack.com or hit me up on any of the social media platforms. If you care to follow our Big Fight Weekend podcast, you can listen to it on audio, Spreaker, Spotify, any of the normal places you find podcasts. But it's also, we put some of the interviews on our YouTube channel. I actually have an interview right now with Jai Opetaia, who is fighting on Sunday, defending the cruiserweight title. Which cruiserweight title he's going to defend, we're not sure yet. He's going to defend the lineal title. There's obviously issues at the moment with the IBF. We'll see what happens with that. But we had a very good conversation about his upcoming fight. And whatever belt he's fighting for, I'm excited to watch the big man fight. He's a great puncher and an exciting fighter.
Definitely. And like I say, every single link to where you can find Dan is underneath this interview in the description box. But Dan, stay tuned to next week because I guarantee there'll be something that's popped up and I want to have a chat with you. So who
Might
knows?
not have to wait till next week. It could be tomorrow. Who knows?
It could be tomorrow, exactly that. Listen, keep your email open because I might be in your inbox. Dan, thank you so much, mate. Have a good afternoon, evening, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.